Today I figured I'd give you guys a ranking of the Sean Connery and George Lazenby Bond films. This is a series that I've always loved, and I figured I would break up the series into 4 different videos. First, I'm going to do Connery and Lazenby, since Lazenby only had one film and you can't really rank, one movie. And then I'm going to do more. He's going to get his own video. And then I'm going to double up Brosnan and Dalton, since Dalton only had 2 films, you can't really rank 2 films. And then I'm going to finish up with a video ranking the Daniel Craig Bond films. But without further ado, let's get started. Coming in 8th place is 1971's Diamonds Are Forever. This film shows Bond in Vegas trying to stop Blofeld and his organization, and this film is not that good. It has 2 gay henchmen in it, or at least they're assumably gay, and that's about the only thing memorable about the film. I guess it was kind of progressive for 71. But other than that, there's not much about this film that I remember. There's one cool, car chase sequence in the film, but other than that, it's pretty much kind of a dud for me. Sean Connery doesn't really seem to be trying this time around, and it was his last official Bond film in the main franchise. But not a terrible film, just one of my least favorites of the series. Coming in at number 7 is 1965's Thunderball. Thunderball is not a bad movie, but it has some aspects of it that are somewhat disappointing. For one, the villain is interesting, but he's kind of a cartoon cutout. Something you see in like a animated movie or something. On top of that, there's a bunch of underwater action sequences which are kind of slow. The film is not terrible, and I do like some aspects of it, but not one of the better Sean Connery Bond films, in my personal opinion. Coming in at number 6 is 1967's You Only Live Twice. This film has some odd elements. For one, there's a scene where they turn James Bond into an Asian man. That's right, they take the Scottish Sean Connery and put prosthetics on him so he can pretend to be an Asian guy. That wouldn't really fly in today's, more politically correct world, but I do find it absurdly hilarious. But apart from that, there's nothing about this film that's really memorable, except for the villain, Blofeld, played by Donald Pleasence of Halloween fame, and one cool scene where he fights in a helicopter, a single-person helicopter. Apart from that, I think the film's a little slow, and it's not too enjoyable, but not a bad movie. Coming in at number 5 is 1962's Dr. No. This is James Bond's first official adventure, at least on film, in movie form, and it shows James Bond taking on, Dr. No. He's an evil scientist-like character that works for this organization known as Spectre, and James Bond must stop and foil his evil plans. It's not a bad film, but I don't think it's the best first entry for a Bond. But I do think a lot of the tropes that we know Bond for, such as the Aston Martin, Hendrick and Martinis, being a suave ladies' man, it's all introduced here. This film is very important for being the first one, but it's not one that I love, really. Coming in at number 4 is 19... What am I doing? Okay, sorry. Coming at number 4 is 1983's Never Say Never Again. Sorry about that. For some reason, I was looking for this movie in the set, and this is not part of the set. This film is pretty damn good. A lot of people don't like this film, and it's the only film not part of the official canon But to me, I consider it canon. To me, this is Sean Connery's last adventure because this is the last movie that Sean Connery did. This film was released in 1983, and this was one of two Bond movies that the year, the other being Octopussy. This film was made to more or less compete against that film by a different company. This film is also a loose remake of Thunderball, but it's Thunderball done better. Better action, better Bond girl, better villain, an enjoyable and fun entry, and I actually think Sean Connery went out on a really high note. A lot of people don't like this film, but for me personally, I actually think it's one of his better adventures, and one that I very much enjoy. A lot of good action, a lot of good visuals, some really cool, action and acting, but kind of a poor soundtrack. But apart from the jazzy soundtrack, it's an enjoyable film and one that I enjoy. Coming in at number 3 is 1963's, or rather 1964, Goldfinger. Goldfinger is an enjoyable film that shows Bond going up against, Goldfinger, a maniac who wants to radiate the world's largest supply of gold so he can keep it all for himself and make himself extremely wealthy. This film also features one of the most ridiculous, if not the most ridiculously named, Bond girls in Pussy Galore. This film is fun, has a lot of good action in it, is very enjoyable, has great acting and chemistry among the cast, and a good soundtrack. It's a major step up from Dr. No, but it's not my favorite of the franchise, but still very enjoyable. This is a lot of people's favorite Bond film, and I can see why. It's very entertaining and very, very Bond-like. Coming in at number 2 is 1969's On Her Majesty's Secret Service. This film was the only film to star George Lazenby as James Bond. He was the first guy to replace Sean Connery, but people got upset with him as Bond, and they brought Connery right back for Diamonds Are Forever. However, I think Lazenby does a damn good job, and I think he's actually a really good James Bond. He's not perfect, mind you. I do think he has his flaws, and I think that, he's not quite as good as Sean Connery, but he was not a bad James Bond, and I think a lot of people give him a lot of undue hate, and I think that he started a very good and satisfying Bond film. On Her Majesty's Secret Service shows Bond actually getting married, which is something very much different for the character, and it also has, really good soundtrack, great performances from most of the cast. I really enjoy the villain. This is Blofeld this time, but he's played very well. And it's all very enjoyable. A lot of people don't like this one, but for me, I think it's one of the better Bond films. And it's kind of has kind of a tragic love story, and one that I actually recommend. But coming in at number 1, the best Bond film of the 1960s, 1963's From Russia with Love. I love this film. It's very enjoyable, very fun, a lot of good action, a lot of good special effects too. A great performance by Robert Shaw from Jaws fame as the villain. This film is enjoyable, and it shows Bond trying to get a decoder device back from, the Russians in an attempt to stop a potential nuclear war or nuclear threat. This film's very enjoyable, and if you're a Bond fan, I highly, highly recommend it. And in my opinion, it is the best of the Sean Connery Bond films. And also, there was even a From Russia with Love video game that I actually own, released for the Xbox and PlayStation 2, and I recommend that as well. This is a series of films that I've always loved, and I think Sean Connery is still the best James Bond, even to this day. I do have to say, though, there are some problems with some of his films. But for the most part, I do think overall he still has the best run as Bond, and I think Lazenby was a pretty welcome addition to that, run as well. Anyway, that's my video. Hope you enjoyed the ranking. And if you have your own list, be sure to leave it below. This is a very fun and enjoyable franchise, and one that I recommend. Thanks for watching, and peace out.